Well, there's another edition of Unpluggered, and certainly a better time to be joining you this week after all of the uncertainty that came out of the debacle that was the Essendon game. We produced a memorable fight back to overhaul a 33-point deficit, kick the last 8 goals of the game to down the West Coast Eagles, square our season away at 2-2 ahead of a difficult fortnight against arguably the competition's two best sides in Richmond and Port Adelaide. A 5-day turnaround into the Tigers on Thursday night, so recording this one nice and early, and we have a casualty. Nick Splitter, one of our regular co-hosts, has fallen crook over the last 24 hours, lost his voice, which makes this particular medium particularly difficult. So we have a substitute. We have Aaron McGrath here, our regular co-host. First of all, H, nice to have you with us as always.
Yes, it's much better situation than we probably thought we were going to be in a half time, or even halfway through the third quarter. So it just seeing the change that went from the halfway through that third quarter to where we finished up. You just think, well, if we can play at least 3/4 of a game at that capacity, we're going to win a lot of games this season. So it's a slump back in the couch half time, sort of thinking, here we go again. But yeah, completely changed track after that.
It was a funny one because statistically it was a case of, well, how were we 5.5 goals down? We were dominating possession through the middle. We were well on top in clearances. Inside 50s and territory was our way, but the Eagles were clearly more efficient. They scored 16 times from 26 entries to halfway through the third quarter. 13 of those were goals. They were generating a lot of goals over the back by guys like Petrocelli. Obviously, Darling kicked a couple early in that same fashion, and they were just a lot cleaner, but it didn't feel like we were out of the game. We almost were on the scoreboard, but not in general play. So it wasn't entirely out of the question that we would get on top, but I don't think anyone expected it to that magnitude. And a lot of questions were, how much fight is there in the group? How much character is there in the group? How do they respond from that? And the answer has left us feeling a lot more confident about it. Our co-host in place of Nick today is somebody whose work you'd be very familiar with for anybody who trolls YouTube and Facebook for St Kilda content. It doesn't come any better than what is provided by our co-host. It is Andrew Shostak, who is, of course, the other founder and creator of Saints FC Archive, which is a go-to place for highlights, for match replays, for St Kilda-related content, some absolute gems that you can find there. Some of the behind the scenes and news coverage around the 97 grand final, things going back to the early days of Tony Lockett's career, and much, much more. You can basically pick a season and then spend an afternoon reviewing it on that page if you wish. Andrew, thanks for stepping in, and obviously good time to have you with us. So I'm sure that in a year or so, or however long it takes you to upload a replay of that St Kilda West Coast game, I reckon that one might be searched for a few times.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to be here. Darren and Aaron. It sounds like a bit of a rhyme there, Darren and Aaron, but lovely to join you boys. And let me tell you, Darren, if you asked me last week, this time last week to come on, I think we were all at the stage last week. I actually left the game. I've never done that before in my life. Left the Essendon game 10 minutes into the third quarter. Absolutely disgusted with what was really looked like a lack of effort, and Champion Data's rankings. I think we were in the second quarter registered 111 ranking points, which is the lowest ever recorded by a team in a quarter. And I know that we were pretty disappointed after that game, and I swore to myself that I actually wouldn't go to the West Coast game. But as the week goes on, the blood certainly is red, white, and black. And come Saturday morning, I woke up and I actually thought we were a really big chance to beat West Coast. And I was pretty frustrated halfway through the third quarter. As you said before, Darren, all indicators were saying we should have been a lot closer in the contest, and but we were just butchering the ball a little bit. And I know when Dougal Howard chipped it across goal to straight into the hands of Liam Ryan, I actually got out of my seat and changed. I actually was thinking about leaving, but then I thought no. And then I actually changed aisles, and I went and sat about 4 aisles down. And from that moment on, we got the biggest run on of all time, and I couldn't leave. And it was incredibly exciting. And you talk about Champion Data ranking points. I think in the last quarter, I think our number got as high as 244. So which is off the charts. So as Aaron said before, we bring that effort every week. It's pretty hard to do every week because there's a pretty taxing game of footy to play. The intensity we went with, but I can tell you, if we give that effort every week, there's nothing we can't do this year. I'm pretty convinced of that.
Yeah, I think that's the assessment. And we had, on the back of our worst performance, probably in reality, maybe our worst performance since the Good Friday game against North in 2018, but possibly longer than that. We then faced three of the toughest tasks you can face in footy, and you're staring at a cliff, really. You're looking at 1 and 5 potentially if it goes wrong. You're nearly 6 goals down against a West Coast team that was in really good form, and you're thinking, well, it's fading away at a million miles an hour, but we were able to resurrect that, find a way through, and the response was terrific. And the response from individuals, I was probably a little unfair last week when we were talking about selection, and that I said I hope as a club that we reach the point where we move past selecting players like Daniel McKenzie. 3 days later, he plays probably his best game for the club, a huge role through the other middle of the ground. We all debated whether Brad Hill should have been dropped. He then played probably his best game for the club. Brad Crouch's response was really impressive. Max King had a breakout game. And Dan Butler, I mentioned that coming into this West Coast game, he kicked 9 goals in 13 matches. He then kicks 3 and helps turn the game in the third term. It was a day for responses, and it was good to know they had that in them after the real character assessment of the week before.
Yeah, well, you say maybe Dan McKenzie's best game. I say well and truly Dan McKenzie's best game. We've seen glimpses of skill, glimpses of hard-nosed defender, jumping in and just wanting the ball, but we've never seen a complete game like that from him. Basically, if we say that's a turning point for him, he's put the handbrake on and done a full handbrake turn. That he's gone a completely different direction and has put in a full game. He hasn't it wasn't just bits and pieces. He played a full game of footy. He intercept marked. He defended well. He got up forward and, as you say, pressure up forward and kicked the goal from earning the free kick off McGovern. It was a brilliant game. And, I mean, I'm going to preempt it a little bit, but unfortunately I couldn't squeeze him into votes, but, geez, I would have loved to have.
Yeah, that was a challenge. There were so many that it was really, really difficult to get it in there. Andrew, your thoughts on the development of Max King across the way? We've sort of sensed that, particularly with the way the rules are set up this year and the open nature of the game, that it was only a matter of time until he kicked a bag. He kicked 5 and probably could have kicked 8, given the chances he had on the afternoon. But a genuine match-winning role from a number 12 in the key forward position for the Saints. So good to see that again.
Max showed glimpses all of last year, getting his hands to the footy, and probably he's just a little bit, I wouldn't say skinny, but just he doesn't quite have that 3-year pre-season AFL body. And I think you become a proper AFL footballer after you've played probably, I'm going to say proper, you're genuine AFL footballer after 3 pre-seasons and 50 games under the belt. But we've got to remind ourselves he's actually probably played 25 games of footy or just under, Max. So, but really exciting signs. He's kicking for goal is still, it was a really lazy kick in the third quarter, at the start of the third quarter, the kick. But overall, to kick 5, and he's so agile on the ground. And I'll tell you what, he nearly kicked goal of the year at the start of our comeback in the third quarter, just when we were coming. That passage of play where he actually flew for the mark and then, actually tapped the ball to himself and ran through 2 West Coast players and snapped it on the right foot, and it just missed. I'll tell you what, if that went through, Marvel Stadium would have absolutely torn the roof down on Saturday. So really exciting signs. And interesting you talk about Dan McKenzie. Leading up to the game, I actually just had a thought to myself when I was discussing it with one of my St Kilda mates. Dan McKenzie is not a bad option for the wing. And I actually noticed at the start of the game, turned up there and actually was feeling pretty good. He lined up on the wing. He's got speed. He can mark. He's an aggressive tackler. And he did a great tackle in the third quarter there on McGovern as well. That sort of got us within, I think, 16 points to that point as well. So he played a really good game. Definitely one of his better games for St Kilda. Really, really happy. And also, boys, you were just talking about selection there, about Brad Hill and Dan McKenzie and some of the guys you thought would drop last week. One thing I'll say about Brett Ratton and the selection panel, every single week on Thursday night or Friday night when the teams come out, I could never say this about Alan Richardson, by the way, and it's all due respect to Alan Richardson. The team on Thursday night when Richo was coach, I always used to look at it and say, I can't believe these are the changes this week. Rats has got it right just about every week. And Mason Wood and McKenzie, Mason Wood and Sean McKernan, 100%. I mean, with all due respect to them, nice people, whatever, I don't understand why they're on our list. I understand McKernan to agree from the insurance point of view with Ryder and Marshall, but really they should not be playing in our team. Then there's no room for them in our team. And geez, we looked a lot better without both of those boys in our side. So that's probably harsh on them. I'm not meaning to be harsh, but just a much better balanced lineup without those two in our team.
Yeah, I think they were only meant to ever be backup, and the last few weeks that's definitely what we have needed with the guys missing that we are. But it's, I mean, as you're saying with Mackenzie again, he's found what his position is. I think it's with Richo. I think there's a lot of players who, as you're saying, did get played out of position a lot of the time. There's been a couple of, I guess, gap fillers in positions, and he's been used as that a lot. But I think if he's given an actual position, he can take that position and go, "This is mine. This is what I'm doing. This is the game I play." So I just saw there's a couple of times where you saw he got the ball, he stopped, he looked and went, "No, that's not the right option." He took that half a second longer and went, "There's the option." The kick into the king in the forward 50 was magnificent. And generally, we see players just boot it into the 50 and it lands on the defender's heads. But he summed up the situation beautifully and went, "Oh, there's King by himself. Short little chip kick, easy."
Yeah, you've got to
just showed how easy it is to do.
Yeah, no, not enough credit given. We were 3 goals. I think it was 3 goals, 1-0 early in the first quarter. Probably 5 minutes into the first quarter, there was a high ball that got kicked to him on the outside wing that set up our first goal, and he stood under that ball under pressure, put his hands up and actually clunked the ball, and it was a significant moment for him and us, what we needed, because actually the ball went down and Max King kicked the first dribble goal for us on the day, and Mackenzie's work on the wing there was outstanding.
Yeah, it certainly was. The ruck situation, obviously having the presence of Marshall, but Jake Carlisle's last couple of weeks too, being asked to play a role that is not a normal role. Clearly he was out of favour. Brett Ratton was leaning towards James Frawley before he was injured and played Highmore obviously early in the season as well. And Carlisle gets the opportunity on the back of, say, Hunter and McKernan not necessarily delivering in those big man posts. And against Natanui with Marshall on one leg for most of the second half, Carlisle's influence was enormous on the contest. And I do wonder, I know Max Gorn would have beaten him probably in a similar fashion to the way he beat the likes of Hunter and McKernan, but you do wonder in retrospect if you had Carlisle moving around the grounds, how he might have fared, even just sort of dropping a kick behind the play and keeping us in the contest. So I guess you live and learn from that, but he'll be asked to do a bit this week, whether Marshall does or does not play. It's probably a difficult one to assess in terms of votes. H, I might give you the floor first of all in regards to your 3, 2 and 1. Last week was difficult to find the 1. I think we all knew the other 3 and the 2, but we're trying to ascertain this week a chance to fill, say, 3 spots with 9 or 10 players.
It is a difficult one, very, very difficult. As I said just before, I wish I could have squeezed Mackenzie in. I just couldn't. I wish I could have squeezed Hill in. I couldn't. Carlisle as well. He could. He just probably deserved the vote, but I just don't have the room for him. I've had to give one to Brad Crouch. 12 tackles, 9 of them were by half time. He obviously he was one of the ones keeping us in it in that first half. He was laying the tackles, getting plenty of the ball for himself as well. But yeah, best game for us so far. I mean to say been 2 games, but improvement on last week was magnificent, significant improvement on last week. 2 to Billings, popped up everywhere, just used the ball beautifully all day. I can't remember exactly how many score involvements I heard he had, but the number was massive. The kicking goals himself, that rove off the back of the pack, that was a beautiful goal. Just picked it and he had the defenders closing in on him and just to snap it through. It wasn't an easy angle, but that was a beautiful finish. And as feels like it's a running theme, I've got to give it 3 to Steele. Led the way again and just racks up the touches, uses it beautifully every time he gets it, and he's leading this team as well as anyone could.
Yeah, I gave one vote to Brad Crouch, similar to you. 12 tackles, which is the second most he's ever had in a game. 26 possessions, led the way in the first half and battled hard in the second. Plenty of apologies. Apologies to McKenzie, apologies to Billings, Carlisle, Butler, even an apology in that sense. Zach Jones finished the game really well. So I gave one to Crouch. I gave 2 votes to Max King. 5 goals, had about 8 or 9 shots, took some contested marks. Really stood up, kicked a crucial goal in the third quarter when we were up against it, kicked 3 in the first, and then kicked a big goal to get us within 3 points in the last quarter. He made the contest that led to the Billings goal. He gave the hand pass off to Steele to kick what was effectively the sealer. And Jack Steele does get the 3 votes again, 33 possessions. He's kicked 5 goals in 3 weeks. He's had 93 possessions over that 3-week period. He was our standout player when we were horribly out of form over the last fortnight, and then led the way in our return to form, as you would hope the captain would do. So 1 to Crouch, 2 to King, and 3 to Steele. But yeah, last week we hardly had any options for votes. This week we had plenty. Andrew, how would you have deciphered your Saints Brownlow votes?
I think you guys have named all the players. The only one that you haven't mentioned, who he probably didn't have his best game, but you just underline again to us, probably the most important player in our side for structure is Rowan Marshall. Just to have him back in the side. And it's funny, when he went off, 10 minutes before half time, we were all fearing the worst there. And actually, it was probably the only period of the day we looked just a little bit flat again when Marshall was off the ground and we weren't sure whether he was coming back on. I can tell you, we were all pretty flat in the grandstand watching it, that, geez, if Marshall's injured again, we're in big trouble. But once we saw him out there at the start of the third quarter, very, very, very happy. And look, clearly he's just come back, didn't play his best game, but just what he means to our side, very, very important. Wouldn't get him in the votes this week. And also apologies to probably Jake Carlisle, who I thought played an absolutely sensational game, one of his better games in a long time. I thought Zach Jones' second half was absolutely sensational. Absolutely played a ripping, back to the Zach Jones that we saw last year. Energy up, moved, a lot of centre clear. They actually got a lot of centre clearances in the second half. Zach Jones, it really, really played well. Apologies to Dan McKenzie as well, who played really well. Great to see Butler getting us going in the third quarter. He's been a bit down the last couple of weeks, but really just sparked us there for 5 minutes. Apologies to Max King and probably and Brad Hills. I thought first quarter was probably the best quarter he's played in St Kilda colours since he's got to St Kilda. Probably not as good throughout the rest of the game, but his first quarter he was really, really good. But I'll give 1 vote to Jack Billings. I thought he was sensational. And Aaron, as you said, that goal off the pack in the last quarter, the one touch, tapped it in front of him, snapped it on the left, and he knew it was a beauty too, because if you look at his reaction, he's got the finger going, he's got the cheeky smile going. He knew it was a ripper. Played a great game. Really, probably playing more forward this year than he has previous years. Probably was sort of playing wing and D50 a lot, but I reckon Rats has actually unleashed him a little bit more forward, and he looks very, very dangerous. Probably could have kicked 3 or 4, but certainly was involved in at least 4 or 5 goals and played a great game. 2 votes to Brad Crouch. I just thought right from the opening bounce, he was sensational. Set the tone with the tackles. Probably got heavily criticised by Maddie Lloyd and a few others in the media last week that maybe he's too slow in the game. This new modern game has gone past a midfielder like him, and I thought he was absolutely sensational. Really, really complimenting our midfield as well, and I think he's absolutely going to be a great acquisition for us. Just knows how to find the footy. Really, really played well. And 3 votes, clearly Jack Steele. I mean, how can you go past this guy? I mean, I've been Jack Steele's biggest fan since the day he walked to St Kilda Footy Club. He knows it. We've spoken about it. He sent me a message. I sent him a message when he got named captain. He sent me back a magnificent response that I always believed in him from the day he walked in. And I think this guy, I know that Callan Ward, when he left GWS, Callan Ward said that there was one recruit, forget about Treloar, forget about Devon Smith, all of these guys that they lost. The one that he's really was the most upset about was Jack Steele. And he thought he was going to be an unbelievable footballer. Now, I'm telling you, this guy, I don't want to moz him and put any things on him. For me, he's in the Patrick Cripps conversation right now, as in terms of he is that good a footballer. And if he's not in the best 5 or 6 midfielders playing AFL football right now, well, I don't know anything about the sport. He's just an absolute ripper, just a great person, great captain. What a great choice as captain, inspired game, and just getting better and better. Third in the Brownlow last year, runaway best and fairest winner. We're very, very lucky to have him. What a player.
Yeah, I did see something on Channel 7 socials earlier tonight. They have some ranking system that they got going on by a couple of people on I can't remember exactly what show it was, but they had him up into fourth most influential player in the league. So it was only behind basically at the moment Petrarca, Gorn, and I can't remember who the other one was exactly. I think it was Tex, possibly. It was a second, but I mean, how long is that going to last? We don't know. But yeah, the game has changed this year. So and you compare in the Crips, I think he's moved past Crips to get away the game is at the minute. Crips is very, very much a hard in the stoppages sort of player.
Yeah.
Steele has that, but then he runs off as well.
Yeah.
Crips doesn't have the pace, I don't think.
Yeah, well, he was clearly a top 5 player in the 2020 season last year. I mean, Lockie Neal, Petrarca, Steele, Tom Hawkins, and there was one other that's escaping me, but he was absolutely a top 5 player in the comp last year, and absolutely certainly hasn't gone down at all this year. And in fact, he's getting better. He's actually playing better footy. So, yeah, look, he's just a star. And I'll tell you what, it'd be really interesting. I mean, I know he's played a lot of run with roles, and his run with roles were very different to a hard tagger. He was actually he was going head to head with Bontempelli and these sort of guys and beating them really for a number of years. Be very interesting to see. I know we'll get on the Richmond game a little bit later. It'll be very, very interesting to see, do we put him up against Dusty when Dusty's in the centre this week and let him go head to head with him, and then probably Wilkie will take Dusty when he goes forward. So it'll be pretty interesting.
Duncan, who was held without it, didn't go very far. Jack Daniels. Now, sometimes he's an interesting kick. Well, he comes across the ground and he finds ways of it. It was a good one. 14 points lead at quarter time. As you say, they get this one now, bringing them back to 21. Still well and truly in the ball game. That could bring rain. It's high, it's just about got the distance, I think, that kick. Deceivingly high, but it's straight in its line-up.
Well, our next guest, we did speak about the prospect of chatting to him last week, but great to get him on now, and particularly that coincided with the return of a ruckman in a game that underlined how important ruckmen are to the success of a team. You get Rowan Marshall back, you get a bit of a structure back, and you see what happens. And St Kilda, we worked on the stat last week. I was talking to Aaron about it, that during Lazar Vidovic's career at St Kilda, the Saints' winning record was just a tick under 43%. But in games that Lazar played, the winning record was about 56, 57%, which probably shows how important he was when he was fit and available within that St Kilda lineup. Played in the finals run in 91, and St Kilda missed a key ruckman in the 97 grand final that everyone talks about in Peter Everett, but they missed 2 with Lazar going down with a knee injury against Port Adelaide in the final round. And you wonder what the presence of either of those 2 big men, particularly both, would have done in that game. But he does join us, a cult hero of the Saints. Lazar, thanks for your time.
Hello, fellas. Any time, any day. I'm appreciative that you could invite me to your show, fellas. It's nice to be able to have a part in it.
Wanted to start off with the 97 question that everyone's spoken about. Everyone always said that there was a bit of a cult statement or a cult myth, if you will, that you said that words to the effect of, there's no way Darren Jarman would have kicked 5 goals in the last quarter if you were playing, because you may have done something about it. Is that true, that you might have perhaps picked him off if it was necessary?
Well, back in the day, you could pick someone off because, there was probably 1 or 2 cameras on the grounds back then. Now you got like 30, 40 cameras on every player. So back in the day, you probably could have picked him off, got away with it behind the play incident. I'm not saying that I would have done something, but we could have. But I think it was just a mismatch on the day. I did my knee, Spider Everett done his knee. Stanel's got out coached with the players that Malcolm Blight had. He was able to put Jarman on Shanahan. He's able to manipulate his team against ours. Look, don't forget, I was out. So was Modro. Tony Modro was a 10-goal player. People say if I hadn't played or Spider hadn't, which we both did, we probably could have won. but I suppose the planets have got a line in a grand final, and look, I'm still probably filthy to today that I wasn't able to have an impact on the game because I was injured. Yeah.
Lays, answer the question that Darren asked you, because that's what we really want to know. Had that would have been your last game of football, right? Because you retired at the end of that season.
Yep.
What would you have done had you have played in the '97 grand final? Come on, mate.
Well, you would have tried to knock out Jarman straight away, or you would have tried to knock out Look at every grand final. Dermot Brereton got knocked out by Yates, Dipper Domenico. You look at the players. There's always an incident in the grand final where there's a defining moment, a defining act. It doesn't have to be a physical act, and it's probably a low act by myself saying, look, having St Kilda been in the finals, I would have tried over, I would have crawled over broken glass to try and beat anyone and did anything I did. But what I say and what I do in front of 100,000 is a different story. I would have loved to have knocked out Jarman because Harvey was running rampant. The way the matchups went, they beat us on the day. You know, Barry Hawes in his first sort of first final. Nicky Winmay had some bad situations with his family. Stewie Lowe's, a close family member, had died. So we had a lot of bad things go against us. But look, getting back to the grand final, I would love to have knocked out Jarman. So Shanahan would have been sweet and, just put Steve Zilla on him or something like
that. Similar sort of theme. You kind of almost wanted to get rid of Fremantle to win their first game of football ever. You almost put it on yourself to remove them from the league. The first game you went out there in the practice game or the Ansett Cup it was back then, and just decided to go, I don't like this team already. So what happened that day? A bit warm or what? What was it?
Well, I came out of the Broadmeadows League as a kid. I played at Coolaroo and Broadmeadows back in the old northern suburbs. And anyway, took a hard road to get to play for St Kilda. Next we're playing Freo. It was the first game. I go, okay, St Kilda versus Fremantle. I'm thinking, well, we're AFL material. Who's Fremantle? So next minute, there's Spider Burton that I played against. He's taken a couple of marks against me and going, oh, he's not up to AFL material. I'm thinking, where these guys come out of? So I got frustrated going, oh, bloody, local waffle league bloke taking a mark over me. So I just give him a couple of crowbacks on the head. Next minute, all the other teammates have come in and I didn't know it was Brendan Crummell. So I just threw a right-hand little hand out and ran the straight into Brendan Crummell's eye and cut him over the eye and give him 8-10 stitches. And I'm sorry. I'm still sorry to today that I did that. Sorry, Brendan.
Your arrival at the club, so obviously you played a game in 89, didn't play 90, and then 91 was a pretty good year for you and the club. You arrive when St Kilda is at a relatively low ebb, but a club legend in Darryl Baldock is coaching them. Tony Lockett's back, fit and firing, ran rampant at the start of 89 before he got suspended and then injured. He was on track to kick 200 goals that year, kicked 71 in the first 9 games before that suspension. Can you take us through your first impressions of Moorabbin after your football journey coming to a St Kilda club that was in the midst of change? They were heading towards what was going to be some good times with Harvey and Lowe and Burke and Winmar and these guys arriving at the club.
Yeah, look, it was a very, very tough era where, look, I'd played at North Melbourne under the Cracker brothers and John Kennedy and wasn't guaranteed a game. So I ended up at Castlemaine. So apparently Grant Thomas was a bit of a spotter up in the Bendigo League and got recruited to St Kilda by John Beveridge, Luke Beveridge's dad, who coaches the Bulldogs, real guy. And he kept peppering me to come down. And I played down at Moorabbin, and that's when I met Tony Lockett and all the guys like that. And we go, who's Tony Lockett? Like he kicked 10 goals in that game in '89. I got invited down there. I've come out of the bush and he's kicked 10 goals on him. And in the social club, they've gone, to Tony, you're still fat, Tony. You're still carrying weight. And he's knocked out Ricky Watt in the social club in the rooms. And Plugger asked me after the game, he goes, well, I've just kicked 10 fucking goals, ladies. What do they want me more to do? So it was a bit of a transition from part-time footballers to professional footballers. We didn't even know it. So we're paid like almost professional footballers, but being knockabouts like ourselves from the local leagues and that, we didn't know how important it was to be professionals. We thought being professional was getting home, getting to bed by 8 o'clock on a Sunday night or Saturday night, get up on Sunday morning. But, it was very tough times. The transitional period from amateur to professional, even though we were professional, but it was a hard era.
Lays, take us back to the first final you played for the Saints in 91 against Geelong and the elimination final at Waverley. I remember it was 18 years, I think, between finals appearances for the Saints. And I remember with a few of our mates, we actually got to Waverley at 8 a.m. in the morning. We were the first one there. We were so excited. And you were running around in the big number 50 jumper, mate. Tell us your memories of that game, and why were you in the number 50? I know the next following year you went to, I think, number 9, but you were 50 in the final.
Yeah, that was 91. I done my knee in 1990. I trained the whole pre-season. A guy named Damien Kazitsky had number 9 in 90. And there was was they wanted me to have a photo with the number 1 ticket holder was Ellie McPherson. And I'm in hospital at the in Gibbs Street in West Melbourne. I had a knee recall. I didn't know that my knee was fucked. And they said, we want to have a photo with Ellie McPherson. So Damien Kazitsky had the number 9 job. I had a photo with her. I'm in the hospital bed to get my knee reconstructed. And there's Damien. He played about 2 or 3 games for St Kilda. God bless him, a saint from Adelaide. And, I missed the photo with bloody Ellie McPherson. So, anyway, so after that 90 season, it was 1991. Next minute, I played a few good games, had a broken ribs. Bernard Tui put me in hospital with a punctured lung. He hit me behind the play at Sydney Swans in 1991, which was ended up getting the ones, and I'm playing against Stephen Hooper with broken ribs. We played Geelong at Waverley, so I turn up and we got beaten by 5 points. I think Lockett kicked about
9.
9.
Yeah, 5, missed a few.
9 and Brown.
And I think Ablott knocked out Nathan Burke and David Grant. Yep. I got hit. I got 2 weeks hitting Ken Hinkley because I got king hit from behind. It was my first time ever in a final. I played 11 games. So all of a sudden I played at Castlemaine League. That's when I'm playing for St Kilda in the AFL at Waverley Park. Now, what am I doing here? I didn't think that I should be playing there. I'm going, wow, it was like mind-boggling, and we got beaten by 5 points, and we could have had one more game we should have won and got into the final. And we beat Hawthorn that year. I think it was in the Batmobile, was at Waverley Park, one of the Batmobile, when Angry Anderson sang the theme song, We Can't Be Beaten.
Yep. So we had another time where we just missed out on another final through pure bad luck of injuries and whatnot, It was a top 6 plays then, and I think we finished, I think it was 3rd place. 3 played 4 and 5 played 6, both in knockout games. So we were a little bit unlucky with the way the draw was that year. The following year, mate, you backed up in 92 and you in the number 9 jumper, and I remember you playing against Damien Monkhurst in our elimination final, winning in Collingwood. Do you remember that game?
Yes. Damien Monkhurst, I hated him, he hated me. Tony Shaw, we had a good game. There's guys like Sean Ralph Smith that come out of nowhere. I think his son plays for one of the teams now.
Hawthorn.
Hawthorn, Sean Ralph Smith. So we had another chance to better ourselves, but for some reason we didn't go on with it. Then I think the Bulldogs beat us the next second elimination final. But it looks just probably timing, bad luck. What can I say, fellas? It's like finals. You've got to get yourselves in there, but it's lucky to get in there and have the right teams to beat. But it's another thing to beat them on the finals day. So I think you need a lot of luck in the finals as well.
Yeah, I bet you would have loved to have played more games at Moorabbin, because I'm sure you're someone who would have revelled in the rev up from the animal enclosure, and just you would have absolutely loved the noise coming from there and the encouragement, I guess you could call it at times. So I'm sure if you could played more games there, how big a player do you think you might have been?
At Moorabbin, I reckon I kicked about 20 points at Moorabbin, and I always wanted to kick a goal like in front of the animal enclosure, and I never kicked a goal at Moorabbin. My biggest regret was not kicking a goal at Moorabbin. Having all the supporters behind me, it was worth about 5 or 10 goals extra playing at Moorabbin with the animal enclosure and the whole club there. It was such an advantage to ourselves to beat the opposition. It was great, but
So, Lays, we had a couple of years in '94 and '95 where we were sort of probably just rebuilding a little bit, and then the start of '96 with Stan as coach, we had that night series.
Yep.
Night series where we started really well, then we beat Hawthorn and went over to Adelaide and won, and then beat West Coast, and then we played Carlton in the grand final, which you were up against big Justin Madden. Packed Waverley, I think there were as packed as we get. Huge crowd, incredible atmosphere, one of the most amazing atmospheres at a night game I've ever seen.
And
we really pumped Carlton. You started in that game. You set up Nicky Winmar, I think, in the first quarter with a ripping tap on that he kicked a great goal. What do you remember of that game? What was it like playing? And didn't the St Kilda supporters go crazy after the game?
Mate, I had uncles that I'd never seen for that when I was a kid. I had uncles turn up at the ground to come and see me. They'd never seen me as a kid. I had long lost uncles, aunties come and see me, and it was amazing. I remember the euphoria about playing it because St Kilda hadn't played a premiership since 1966. Yeah. It was so surreal because we're starved of premierships for so long, and to get in that final, it was so much. It was about 80,000. So it was almost treated like an AFL grand final day match. So we and then we played the main season, the first home and away round. We lose, I think, to North Melbourne on it. What the hell's happened? I go, well, we had a hangover from the night premiership that we thought was a real premiership, and we didn't really win one, but it was a fake premiership, you know what I mean? So, but we tried to win our first premiership since the 60s, which we did, and we become a hangover in the main round of the main season. You know what I'm trying to say?
We lost our first 3 that year and then obviously won the next 4, but never really recovered. We were a chance to play finals for most of 96, but just fell short with a couple of those results along the way. And yeah, that was back when the preseason comp was pretty big. I mean, we played North a couple of years later.
Yeah.
2000. That was big when obviously Hawthorn won it at Waverley in 99. It was a pretty big competition. But that 97 year when we were in all sorts of trouble at 1 and 4, that the recovery came. You got back into the side late in the year. We had a good win in Sydney where you kicked a big goal. Can you explain from your view how it turned around in 97?
Yeah, well, Norm Goss, that was the chairman of selectors back in the day, he went with Brett Cook. So he reckons I had a bit of a fat ass and I was carrying a bit of condition. So he started playing Brett Cook from Fitzroy and said, you're not going to get back in the team while you're not fit and blah, blah, blah. And Brett Cook, good bloke, a good ruckman. He's only about 6'4". He couldn't hold the ruck on his own. So every time he came up against, say, Renan Pittman, he was one out. And he couldn't keep the ruck on his own. So, but when me and Spider done his collarbone, we're both 6'6", 6'7". We could double team, say, Ren and Pittman for the Adelaide Crows. So anyway, halfway through the season, I'm in the reserves, and St Kilda's losing and whatnot. And I said to Stan, I go, why don't you just give me a go in the ruck, give me a spell, put Lowy at centre forward, put Spider at full forward, and rotate the 3 of us. Because when the old days when a ruckman rucked the whole 4 quarters, if you look at today's game, the ruckman goes on and off, it goes forward. But back in our day, we're called dinosaurs because we rucked the whole 4 quarters. And I just said, look, just give me a spell. And they did it in the leading up to the finals, and they go, what a magical master move by Stan Knowles. Lowy goes to centre forward, Spider goes in the ruck, I go on the bench, so I get a rest. Then I go back in the ruck. Spider goes to full forward. Lowy goes centre forward. It's like a rotation. That's when the rotations first come into it. And I think that was the time when St Kilda and the AFL, like even with us, realised that no one player can play in one position. You got to be versatile and be able to play. You look at today's footy, a ruckman will go forward, goes in revert back, goes forward, and goes on the bench. So you got to be versatile, you know what I mean? So we should have won that year. We missed out by just a bee's dick, and it was probably the one that got away, you know, boys. Terrible.
It certainly is. And, yeah, I think as we started it, the way that 97 season was going and the momentum built, the presence of yourself or Spider, or preferably both. I still think structure-wise, for exactly the reasons you stated, with Pittman dropping back onto low and just eliminating that type of scenario, would have done wonders for us for where we were. But Lazar, as we said, a cult hero. Those times at Moorabbin, I'm listening to a lot of old games on YouTube at the moment where they've got full radio calls and you taking 11 marks at Moorabbin and things like that. So plenty of great memories, and thanks for joining us on Unpluggered this week.
It's nice to be able to talk to you about the old days, and appreciate the invite, and I hope you go well with your podcast, fellas. Really appreciate it.
Well, g'day everyone. It's so much more enjoyable, but a week is a long time in footy. To respond the way that we did, and the players were quite embarrassed from last week, and to do what we did, and really the big thing was when we were headed and we just stuck to our guns and we just kept fighting and scrapping, and we just put them under pressure, and to get that result was brilliant. I just think about Max getting a reward today for some of his hard work, but Crouchy coming in and showcasing what he can do, and Jake Carlisle and Rowan Marshall in the ruck. We were plus 15 for clearances against a team that's led by Nat Nui, and Kelly's at ground level, who hurt us last year, but it was really pleasing to bounce back. Footy is such a leveller at times, and I think for us to just get a bit of a reset, win, lose or draw, it's the way you go about it, and I think tonight showed that we have the capabilities, but it's been consistent in that space, and that's going to be a challenge against Richmond, Port, whoever we have to play going forward. We've shown we can do it, but making sure that we can do it for the 4 quarters. And today we didn't drop our bundle, 5 goals down, and we just stuck to the task. And that's what footy is. It's going to throw you curveballs and that, but take away the strategy and what we had to do. It was really just about effort, and to get that result was brilliant. And we look forward to seeing everyone for the Maddie match next week. It was great to hear the crowd and the supporters, and for us to have 50,000 is absolutely brilliant. And footy, we're going to have to ride the bumps and enjoy the lick of the ice cream, as David Parkin used to say to me. But footy's just a great leveller, but great to have everyone back, and great to be back on the winners list.
We look ahead to Richmond. It is Maddie's match, of course. So we had Maddie's match last year, but with a difference. So we did win that corresponding fixture with the Tigers, which was also in round 5 as it falls this time around. No crowds last year. That is welcome back. The Tigers in probably a similar position where they're playing okay, but not at their very best. So their performance against Port Adelaide was certainly commendable in a high standard game. They're reasonably healthy. Obviously, Presti is still out of that lineup, but Dustin Martin started the year really well. Jack Rewalt's actually in pretty good form, coming off probably an indifferent start to last year. If you compare it, 5 games ago, obviously we played Richmond in a knockout semi-final where we were missing several key players. A lot of those guys still aren't going to play. I mean, Gresham was missing that night. Ryder was missing that night. We won't have either of them back. Ben Long may not be selected. Obviously, he's been the sub the last 2 weeks. But Jake Carlisle will play a part, and he would have been important in that game. You add Crouch and Higgins to our team, and it's a matchup. They are the best team in the competition. They are the benchmark, but it's a matchup that we haven't been horrible in. Obviously, we won that game last year. We were competitive in the final. We were pretty competitive against them at the MCG in 2018 when they were the reigning premiers. I think we were in front at 3/4 time in 2019 against them as well. So it's a matchup that's not the worst for us, no matter how good they are. I guess, H, the question coming off the momentum that we built out of last week, can we sustain that on a 5-day break against a Richmond team trying to guard against losing 3 games in a row for the first time since 2017? So they have lost 3 games in a row in a premiership season. They actually lost 4 in a row that year. So it's not unheard of. People saying, "Oh, they won't lose 3 in a row." Well, they can. How do you assess the contest?
Well, it's probably the best time for us to get them. We find that, when you say we've got a good record against them, it's generally been that game early in the year that we've got them, and we've got them well. Apart from, obviously, 17 was a bit later in the year, but we played them early last year and played well against them and knocked them off. They're only on a 6-day break coming back from Adelaide as well. So it's not technically, when you look at it, okay, they came back to Melbourne only 5 days ago. So, or by the time the game starts, they'll come back to Melbourne 5 days beforehand. They don't have the perfect lead into it either. So it's almost evens out to a 5-day game each. So, I think it is the time to get them. But you say that later in the year is when you have to beat them. So get there this week. Get them basically played. If we can play like I was there last week, at least put up that sort of effort, we're every chance to win the game again. So it's just a matter of if we show up, we're an absolute chance. They're so at the moment. They're, as you're saying, they're not the worst team going around, absolutely, but they can be beaten on their day no matter what.
Andrew, your thoughts on, I guess, the areas where it can be done, and what are you expecting? Last week, the expectation was pretty easy. We needed effort. I mean, they were so ordinary against Essendon that it was whatever happens, win, lose or draw, you need commitment. You need a sign that they are prepared to fight. Now that they have done that and they have won the game, what is your expectation this time? Well,
first of all, just Daz, I think you were a little bit early on waving the white flag on Paddy Ryder there. I think that the talk out of the Saints this week is he is absolutely under strong consideration of playing on Thursday night. And particularly if I would say that decision might even be accelerated if Rowan Marshall doesn't get up for the game. I think Paddy Ryder is a very big chance to play on Thursday night, particularly if Marshall doesn't play. But where do we get him? Look, I think we match up incredibly well against Richmond. I think, clearly Dusty's their big weapon. I think we can, we were talking before about just off air about maybe Jack Steele takes him and, head to head in the centre, and Kellen Wilkie's always taken him when he's gone forward and done really, really well on him. I think he's held him goalless the last 2 times he's played on him when he's gone forward. Look, they're a great side and they're incredibly well coached and their system is great. And I thought their game against Port Adelaide the other night was probably that was clearly the best game of this season from a standard point of view. That Port Adelaide have got some running, some speed, and which we do as well. And we can really worry them with our speed at Marvel if we get going. We've got some very, very quick wheels in our team, and if we get running, we can really take it up to Richmond. As we did last year at Marvel as well. I thought we ran them off their legs that day. We were too fast for them. We actually really showed a lot of speed. And I think guys like Hill and likes playing Richmond as well. I think he's set for a really big game. I think we're a big chance. And I'll tell you one thing, there's going to be a massive crowd at Marvel on Thursday night. I actually spoke to the AFL today. They're expecting 100, well, if it was 100%, it's 75% capacity, and they believe it'll be absolutely packed to the rafters at 75%. So a huge crowd. So all Saints fans, make sure they get along on Thursday night, because it's nothing better than having a home crowd.
Kilda members get at least a day priority on Richmond, so it's a chance for us to outnumber them, which we should do at a home game anyway, but we know they've got fans everywhere for Maddie's match as well, which is significant to both clubs, obviously, given the Rewalt name. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, and that's no disrespect to the Tigers. Clearly, they are the benchmark side, but we do match up okay on them. They're certainly, you'd think, a little bit more consistent and a little bit more reliable, which is something that we're looking to develop. Clearly, as you say, we'd love Marshall to play and we'd love Ryder to play. If they both play, what do we think they do? Because Jake Carlisle's done his job, and we did miss him in that final last year, dropping back in front of Lynch and Rewalt coming out of that forward line. So if Ryder is fit and they play both he and Marshall, what do you think, Andrew, they'll do at the selection table, as in who would go out for Ryder?
Well, look, I'll tell you, there's only one guy in our side out of form at the moment from the game on Saturday, and I love him as a footballer. He came 5th in our best and fairness last year. He's a terrific player, but Nick Caulfield's really out of form at the moment, and I saw his game on Saturday, and he was the only one that actually didn't get going when we got going, and he's probably from a team balance point of view, you probably think if you've got Carlisle and Dougal Howard in the back line, if Ryder plays, you probably assume Carlisle goes back, and you've got Marshall and King and Membry sort of playing as core forward. It might be. Look, I'm not sure, but Caulfield is a really good player, but I thought he was probably the only one that didn't come to the party last Saturday. He just looks a little bit just down on confidence at the moment. So he would be probably the one most at risk from the team on the weekend. And the other one is if Billings is going forward, more as he did last week, and you've got Higgins and Butler. Does Loney stay in the side as well? But Loney's pressure racks were in the top 5 on the weekend, so there's going to be a really challenging one. It's a really good question, Des. I don't know who would. Isn't that a great position to be in as opposed to 7 days ago when we probably could have dropped about 18 players after that performance. So really tough one for. So, and you still got Ben Long waiting to come in as well. So it's good. Finally some integrity at selection and some pressure on the players to keep performing, which has been missing so far for this part of the season. So it's good.
It's probably hard for the battle. I mean, because last week we talked about a couple of players. I mean, Battle 11 marks and Webster, another one that really did stand up. But yeah, it's interesting with we know we've got the long-term injuries of Patton, Geary, and Hanbury, and Frawley's probably only a couple of weeks away, but whether they play him or not. But starting to get a little bit healthier, and now we're getting those challenges, which is good because, as Andrew was saying, last week you could have dropped everyone. This week you're thinking, well, what changes could we make if we've got to bring players back?
Yeah, and I mean, you say battle and taking 11 marks, that sort of thing, but you just sit there and think, oh, he could be the player that gets forced out. And you sort of go, you don't want that to happen, but it may. Yes, Caulfield's, as you're saying, out of form at the moment, but the best place for him to find that form again is in the team playing his position. It's whether he does need a week off. I'm not so certain about, but yeah, it's such a hard situation going, well, yeah, who do you drop from a team who's put in that sort of effort? It's a really, really tough one. And unfortunately, yeah, they're the sort of players that you think, well, they're the only ones you really can.
Battle's too versatile. I mean, I know last week I was probably talking about his versatility sometimes working against him and that he couldn't lock down a spot, but he's so important to the side that if they could find a position for him, I mean, even if he plays forward with Carlisle back, then it gives us another option to potentially stretch them. How they match up forward is interesting, given obviously Castagna plays small. Their midfielders have been pushing forward, guys like Bolton and Lambert and Martin obviously hitting the scoreboard fairly frequently through there as well. We know they don't have as many small forwards available as they have had in the past, with us having a couple of them on our list now, but probably depends how tall or small we think they'll go. But yeah, it's a nice position to be in. I guess, Andrew, big picture wise, I was thinking that last week at 1 and 2, I'm like, it's imperative we win one of the three at the very least. You could recover from 2 and 4. You can't recover from 1 and 5, I wouldn't have thought. So we've got to 2 and 2 now. We've got Richmond and Port Adelaide to come. We won both of these matches last year. Do you sort of look at the season and think we've got to win one of them and get to 3 and 3? Is it achievable if we don't win either of them? Because I just sit there and think that how much does it set us up if we win on Thursday night?
What about if we win both of them?
Well, that's right. That's the optimism that sometimes we don't have as Saints fans.
Yeah, I mean, last week it was doom and gloom. You're 1 and 2, and then you've got West Coast, Richmond, and Port Adelaide. You're going to be 1 and 5. Everyone writing us off. Well, imagine if we got through the 3 weeks with winning all of them, and we've knocked off West Coast after coming from 5.5 goals down deep into the third quarter. There's no reason we can't beat Richmond on a speedy Marvel Stadium with a big crowd, and then we play Port Adelaide and Adelaide without Dersma and Butters, who both won't be playing. So that's and we played really well in Adelaide last year. So there's no reason. Let me tell you, boys, the footy we played in the last 45 minutes of last week's game, there should be no one that we're fearing if we play that sort of footy. And I think everyone would be fearing us. And, we were talking about it today. This is such an even year. There are legitimately 8 or 9 teams this year that could claim a stake that they could actually win the premiership this year. And it is that even this year. So even look, if we did lose, Daz, in answer to the question, I don't think it's end of the season by any stretch. It's 2 and 4. I think we've got Hawthorn after that, and we should be able to win that. And then once you if you get to the halfway mark and you're kind of 5-5, 6-5, around about that mark, it's a long season. You set yourself up to probably win, 7 or 8 of the last 11. You can still get a top 4 spot and do a lot. Bearing in mind the top 4 is probably not as. It's still important, but not as important with a week off before the first week of the final. So very even season this year, guys. But obviously it would be great to win them both.
and even enough that maybe we could have gone 1-5 and still finished top. We've done it before, so but
Well.
yeah, we don't have to worry about that now. So yeah, as you're saying, anything's possible this year. So yeah, I hope it'd be great to knock the two of them off the next 2 weeks. We would go into the rest of the season, head high then, and it'd just be looking forward, going, all right, who's next?
Well, maybe it could be a bad thing. I mean, if we won the next two, we might get a little bit in front of ourselves as well. I think we turned up at the Essendon game. In retrospect, I think it's pretty clear that we just thought we'd turn up that day and win that game. So maybe a little bit of fire in the belly, which we had against West Coast, is probably the edge that we need to be playing with this year. So yeah.
The life of a Saints fan, we always think about what if this goes wrong and what if that goes wrong. But it's a massive game. We're playing the reigning premiers, the team that ended our season last year and then won a flag 2 weeks later. That should be a reminder of how close we were. We were 17 points down in the last quarter of a first semi-final, missing 5 of our best 22 against the side that went on to win the flag. Now we play them again, so we get to measure where we're at entering a new season. It's a much different feel to what it was a week ago, and hopefully they can keep that momentum rolling. Andrew, thank you for stepping in very last minute for Nick, and we certainly hope that he gets well soon. Thank you to Lazar, who joined us a little bit earlier. He had some technical difficulties. I'm not sure that technology is his strength, but good to have him with us all the same. And H, thank you to you as well. But go Saints, boys. Quick turnaround for Thursday, and hopefully we can do it all again. And check out Saints FC Archive on YouTube. To catch, if you want to pass any time in the office or do anything at home, there's some fantastic stuff there, and there's certainly plenty of games that I think I've even hit you up at that I'd love to see somewhere down the track that I haven't seen since they actually occurred from the halcyon days under Grant Thomas. But we look forward to Thursday night, and of course it is Maddie's match, so make sure you support Maddie's vision either at the venue or in the lead up to it, and help out the extended Rewalt family and that cause. But go Saints as we look to Thursday.